the Charles River Conservancy Parkland Show. My name is Renata von Charner. I'm the founder and president of the Charles River Conservancy. And today we're going to talk about a wonderful subject, and that is swimming in the Charles. I want to welcome today Jennifer Gilbert. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Jennifer is the chair of the Swimmable Charles Committee of the Conservancy, and she has been amazing spearheading that effort. And it's something that was part of my vision when I started the Conservancy. I always wanted to swim in the Charles because I grew up swimming in Swiss rivers. So when I first came here in '79, that was my first instinct. I want to go and swim in the Charles. Well, since '79, much has changed, and we'll hear about that. So we always start with our map, because that's the river we're talking about, the parklands we're talking about. And today we are talking obviously about swimming, and there used to be swimming everywhere in the Charles until we found out that it's actually not safe. So now we're looking at swimming in North Point Park. And we will now, Jennifer will now guide us through some very exciting examples of where swimming takes place in other cities. And I think the goal is to have it happen on the Charles first. So that is very much part of it. But swimming is part of the Conservancy's program. You know, we finished the skate park, and we have our volunteers. We're working on underpasses. But swimming, because it's so closely related to the water and the parklands, has always been at the heart of the Conservancy's effort. So Jennifer, tell us about what we see here and how that might inspire us.
Great. So I'm going to start with some, I think, really inspiring images from all over the world. This first one is Chicago, and Chicago released a big master plan for its river. Many people, if they've been there, know that they've done a lot with the river downtown, and this was really looking at the whole city, the whole river, and how they can more activate their river. And one of the things they found very interesting was that they talked so much about how the Charles was really sort of a beacon for Chicago, because we had made the Charles swimmable. And of course, the Conservancy has proven that by having the City Splash, the swims during the summer. And I've been swimming, I think now 4 times in the river, and loved it every time. And that's what's turned me into a real advocate of this. So, but Chicago's not alone, and we're going to show a couple of other images. So this should be very obvious where this is because of those gloomy skies and the towers there. This is London, and it is a proposal, this isn't built, to swim in the Thames. And we have another slide that is Melbourne, Australia. So similar idea. And I think the reason we show these is that very much when people kind of dream about what they could do with their river, they dream not just about, you know, what you do along it, not just the parks, although that's wonderful and part of the Conservancy's work, and not just, you know, high rises along it, but really getting in the river and swimming. And here we are so close to being able to do that because we have you know, water that is clean enough for swimming much of our summer. So we are at an advantage. When we say we want to be first, it's because we really are already first.
Yeah. And a while ago, it says here in February 2010, the Cambridge Community Development Department issued this plan, the Cambridge Riverfront. And I had Stuart Dash here on the show, which you find on YouTube, talking about how to connect the people to the Charles. Although it's all state land, it is also Cambridge's front yard, and for Cambridge, people to be able to get to the river is very much a goal. So we approached Stantec, and they did a feasibility study. And maybe Jennifer, you can kind of walk us through what we're looking at here.
Yeah, so this is one of the pieces from Stantec's feasibility study. It was, you know, wonderful for them to provide this kind of grounding in the, you know, engineering and sort of thought about would this really work. And we went in with the idea that we'd had so many people who'd come swimming in these one-day events, but, you know, the dream has really been to do something permanent place where people could swim all the time, not just 1 or 2 days out of the whole summer. So this, what you're looking at here is something that kind of orients you into the North Point Park area and the North Point area.
Let me interrupt you here a moment. Why looking at North Point Park and not at Magazine Beach or other areas?
So I'm so glad you asked that, because we are always asked. And really, we looked at this as a kind of best first spot, which doesn't mean it has to be the only spot. It would be wonderful if there were other places it could be. But there were some reasons that North Point and this part of the Charles in particular made sense to start with. One is, and this is something people may not realize, the Charles is very shallow along some of the banks in particular. North Point Park is very deep, and you want to have the depths because, well, first of all, it provides a nicer swimming experience, but also because the very bottom of the Charles does still have some old contaminants on it. We don't want to disturb them, and that means we need some depth so that we can create a barrier between swimmers and where those things are. The other reasons that North Point is really an attractive site for this is that it's kind of out of the way for boating. So some boats do go up here somewhat, but the rowers don't really so much. And it means that just making it safe is so much easier than some of the other locations that people have talked about. Magazine Beach in particular, of course, has a wonderful history of swimming. Later on in these slides will show some people swimming there, but it is a spot that is pretty shallow going in because it was a beach. It's narrow, the boaters do, and the rowers do use it a lot. So this is just a good spot for all the practical reasons, and also, as this slide shows, because this is looking at North Point Park, sort of if you were kind of up above it, looking down towards Boston, almost floating above, I guess, the Green Line going from Lechmere into the city. It's a beautiful park as well, and I think that's the other thing I don't want to neglect to say. It's a terrific, it's just a gem, and this would help activate it more, and has some wonderful accessibility that we'll talk about. I think there's the next slide sort of shows us.
Yeah, and what I think if you know that park, you know there are also 2 playgrounds that are already there. They have spray pools, so there's something already there for families and children. And I think that picture predates the building of EF2, but the skate park is also in North Point Park.
Here there's a skate park at North Point Park.
Exactly. So here with this same image as a base, Stantec kind of showed of where the swim park would be located. And here is a rendering of that swim park.
Right. So this is really our kind of key visual to help people really get in their heads what this could look like. And by no means this is not exactly what we might build, but it's a really terrific representation of what this could look like. And I think it's meant to be very inviting, beautiful. I mean, there's a simplicity of design that's intentional because it doesn't need to be fancy. It actually does not need to be expensive. And this is really like a floating docks that are connected. And the idea would be that there would be a platform suspended below that would allow a shallow area, so where people could stand and families could be, and a deeper area. And there would be sort of mesh enclosing it to keep debris out and swimmers in. But this really, and I just want to make sure people kind of get this, this doesn't have to be a fancy, expensive edifice. It really just needs to be something to get people access into water, much like a dock, and protect them enough from the traffic and mark out the area and so forth.
Now, you speaking of access, obviously it's very important that people can get there.
Yes.
And
another
we have
reason
a map
we love
here
North Point.
Yeah.
So, and this wasn't even really clear to me, even though I had discovered North Point. I live in North Cambridge, but we often bike there. It has, terrific bike access. Many people can walk to it from East Cambridge, from Charlestown, even from, over more towards Beacon Hill and Back Bay. But the T access is incredible.
There are 4 T stops within walking distance.
Yes.
We see 3 on the map. But there are 4. There's also North Station, so it's easy to get to.
Yeah, and so it's Orange Line, Green Line, and you can even walk relatively quickly to the Red Line, which is amazing. In the North Point means you also get access to the commuter rail. So people can get here from all over Cambridge. People can get here. There's a very fast bus from Porter and Davis Square as well. People can get here from Boston. People can take the commuter rail or Amtrak from virtually anywhere, and that's just again makes North Point such a great first place.
So these are walking distances, and, and then here.
And I will say I double checked them on my iPhone to make sure they are accurate. I have not walked all of them yet, but I'll do that before next summer. These are Hubway stations. So this is really a snapshot showing at that point, where Hubway bikes were available. And there's the Hubway spot right at North Point Park, but there's several that are close by. That's not the only one. That's a block from where the proposed location is.
And we hope that there probably will be more as there's new development in North Point, which is where we're looking at. There are probably going to be more Hubway stations as well as more residents who can easily get to it. Now, let's go back to the actual pool here, what's planned. And maybe you want to speak a little bit more about the details of what's possible. Which this is not really a design plan; it's really more of a pre-schematic.
Yes, this is we're at the conceptual stage where we're sort of had this determination that what we're talking about would fit, that the access is there, the spot is right, and we're confirming some of the details even now. We're actually sending out folks to do some surveying to confirm that the river is as deep as we think it is. But this sort of shows, kind of the, where you can go with it, so that you have this enclosed area, as I said before, a shallow swim, so that kids will feel comfortable there, and families, people who are more learning to swim, a deep swim. This would be somewhere for example, there are not a lot of good places for lifeguards to train with deep swimming areas. And here there's a rock climb that's shown, much like you'll see this in some playgrounds. There's a kind of simple place that you can rock climb.
And if you fall in, you fall into the water.
I like this much better than some of the places you might fall in by rock climbing. So we think that's also, for people who are feeling a little bit more daring or who like to combine their swimming with some additional upper arm work, you can do the rock climbing.
Explain a little bit what those floating marshes, tell us more about those.
Well, this is something that we're looking into further. First of all, it's something that would certainly make it very attractive and make it feel like it's part of the green and part of the landscaping. One of the other proposals for a swim location is in Berlin, and they're looking and studying very intensively engineering around using plants to naturally filter water or keep out debris. And that's something that we hope to look at a little bit more for the Charles. We'll talk about this more later. The Charles is swimmable. It will meet swimming standards a lot of the days of the summer. So the filtering might not be something that's needed all the time, but might be useful some of the time, and also has the potential to just keep out the stuff that can sometimes unfortunately get into a river.
Yeah, and you referred to earlier of on the side walls, you there might be a mesh like that.
Right, which is also to keep people keep people from swimming out, as well as to keep just as you and I know from swimming in the Charles, there are twigs in it. It's a river, there's leaves in it. This will help keep some of that out of your way.
Yeah. So very much part of you getting excited about that, because you saw examples in other rivers, and we have some examples from mostly European, mostly Swiss.
Well, that's because we're first, so we can't show anything here yet.
And we would like to be first in this country. So, so tell us a bit about these examples that we have here.
And I don't know if you've ever visited this one. This one is in Basel. So this is in
on the River Rhine.
On the River Rhine. Have you been there?
Oh yes,
You've been swimming in this one.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And so there you can either swim in the center, and there are some areas in Basel where you're allowed to go outside because the Rhine is very fast flowing. It's very exciting to go out in the river. But if you are a novice swimmer or a child, there's a very protected area, and and people go there just to hang out on the water and be in the city, but a little bit outside.
Yes, I think that's one of the wonderful things about this. It's like having this incredible bit of nature in the middle of an urban place. This one's also just lovely. It's also used 24 hours, so nighttime. We've had a lot of people ask if we could do some of the city splashes at night, create night swimming. It freaks me out a little, to be honest, but some people would love it. But again, sort of the idea that it's also a place to gather, to just enjoy
I think it's
the
used
beauty.
as a kind of a cocktail place.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And then here's one that really excites both of us, which is this is also used in the winter. So there's a sauna. And then you can get yourself all nice and hot and then go jump in the river and cool off, which
But
we all
these
know
could be temporary
Yes.
heating huts. That doesn't
Yes.
need to be a permanent structure. That could just be temporary to heat up and
Yes.
go
And
in.
I believe the ones, actually, the next images these are the Copenhagen harbor baths, which are really everyone's, I think, the gold standard, kind of everyone's inspiration for, urban swimming. And they do temporary sauna in the winter, cut a hole in the ice and jump in. And here's, again, the daring. And then there's something, the harbor baths, really for everyone. There's a place for lap swimming. There's a place for kids to kind of slowly get in. This is what that is. It's sandy and you can get in gradually. And then we saw in the previous image, for those who want to be daring and jump off into the water, there's also that. So again, it's sort of we can make this work for people who want to use it for all kinds of purposes. And 6 a.m, it might be lap swimmers and triathletes. In the middle of the day, it might be people cooling off and jumping in and just sort of enjoying being out. And then later in the day, it may be more gathering and meeting your friends after work.
So tell us about the water. How cold is it? How hot is it? When can you swim?
Yes.
I think a lot of people probably have questions about that. And I think this chart I think
love
it's hard
this
to
chart.
say. North Point Park is on the top, it's hard to see, but it's the red line, which
Yes.
is the warmest line.
Yes. So when I jumped in the first time, I knew the water was clean because I knew that we had to test it before anyone could go in quite a bit. But my thought as I was flinging myself off the dock into the water was, oh my God, am I going to scream because it's going to be so cold? Because, New England beaches, I grew up in Tennessee, I find New England beaches excruciatingly cold. And it's not. The Charles is warm. The Charles is quite warm. So this chart is also kind of a wonderful illustration of that. It shows a lot of other places people love to swim, like Walden Pond, beaches at Nantucket, Carson Beach, and you can see that they're all not as warm as the Charles. That dotted line is also helpful. That's at 70 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's sort of the place where people are usually comfortable swimming for, let's say 20, 30 minutes, not just jumping in, but really
Yeah, so that tells
having
us
a
that
swim.
from May on, the beginning of May, even at the end of April, May on, it's comfortable in the Charles to
Yes.
swim, whereas the other beaches, you have to wait till June.
Yes, I would say some of them are never comfortable, but it's a wonderful illustration of this. And that means it's a very, very long swim season, potentially to be open. The other reason that's important to know about is that, we do have issues. The Charles has made huge headway in terms of water quality and cleanliness, but we do have issues. We have these blue-green algae blooms that happen, and they tend to happen late in the summer. This year it was August 25th. Last year it was, I think, August 12th or 15th. So late in the summer, and often after a lot of people think the swim season is closed. But I think what this shows is there were a lot of days earlier in the year where we could have been swimming. There weren't issues. And of course, this year we got to swim 4 hours.
Yeah.
So we want to kind of shift that more towards getting to take advantage of the days when it is clean.
Something that has been much discussed by the Conservancy and by the group is working on, that this should be a place that is open for everyone.
Yes.
And I know that is something that is also very dear to your heart.
Yes.
And you brought some powerful images to illustrate that.
Right. So there are proposals to bring swimming back to a lot of urban rivers, and a lot of them, and this is one in Paris, is lovely. People may have seen this. This was in a design magazine, but this is really not a very inclusive, open location. This is a barge that's floating on the Seine, and it is a hotel that has a pool, and it's $300 a night. So this is really not what we're going for. But I think it's also important to acknowledge that in the United States, swimming has a troubled history. I mean, as I was saying before, I grew up in Tennessee. This is actually the neighborhood pool in my neighborhood in Centennial Park in Nashville. When I was growing up, I always would ask, why can't we swim in the pool? It's closed. Our neighborhood park pool was closed. And what I learned is that the pool was closed when two African-American men tried to integrate it, tried to swim there in 1961. And the city closed not just that pool, but every pool in the city in the middle of the summer and did not reopen them for 3 years. And they never reopened the one in my neighborhood, ever. And that's sort of how strong, I think we have to acknowledge it, that's how strong, right, and how uncomfortable and how, just a lot of unfortunate, misguided feeling. There's a wonderful book about this that people may enjoy. This is actually the cover of one of the versions of it, and this is an old WPA poster for swimming lessons in New York, and you can see that all the African-American kids are on one side and the Caucasian kids on the other.
What year would that poster
This was in
go?
the 40s.
Okay.
This would be from the 40s. But, there's a real history of people being unwelcome in swimming, and we know that that's one of the things we really want to overcome and make part of our goal is to make it as inclusive as possible.
And of course that has dramatically changed with the Olympics.
Yes, so this is a good note to end with is Simone Manuel, who was the first African American woman to win a gold medal at the Olympics this year, and this is her moments after that.
So let's go back to Cambridge, and how does the neighborhood look like in terms of demographics?
So, this is interesting, and we're just starting to delve into this. And this is just one little piece of the demographic story in East Cambridge. I think people may think, East Cambridge has become sort of millennials who, don't stay for long. And really, there's much more diversity, people who've been in East Cambridge a long time, as well as more newcomers. And this was something that I was surprised by, and again, to the point of inclusiveness. East Cambridge doesn't have a lot of swimming places now, it's much less than the rest of the city. And it has, a higher rate of poverty. 17.8%. You can see that over there on the right, over what the city amount is.
It's higher.
Gray. It's higher, so, it's just sort of some of the things that we're thinking about in terms of, again, why we're kind of focused on this location and this neighborhood is a great place to bring swimming.
I want to bring us back a little bit about how we got here. Because as you mentioned Magazine Beach, there used to be swimming. What happened, and how were we able to get back to talking about swimming again? So that's Magazine Beach. Look how popular that is.
Yeah, I mean, just look at that. I don't know, like dozens, maybe hundreds of people swimming at Magazine Beach, and then these two young women looking at a sign when the beaches were closed. So
that probably was in, 48?
Yeah.
And then they closed and built the Magazine Beach pool and Lee pool.
Right.
So
So people used to love swimming in the river, and they did. It was not clean in the way it is now. They didn't know better. And then when awareness grew, the beaches were closed. And at some point, really starting in the 80s and 90s, people got the idea that this doesn't have to be the way it is. We can do better. We can have a clean river. And a goal was set of making it clean for swimming and boating.
And John de Villars played a key role to, in 1995, set the goal for swimmable river in 2005. And but then we haven't been swimming. So
we accomplished the goal. It's swimmable, except we don't swim as often as we'd like. So this was the first open water swim, which was 1990?
In 2007.
2007, I'm sorry.
And then we had the first community swim.
Yes.
And that was 2013. So it takes time. and to move these things forward. We had it again, and long wait lists, with people allowed half an hour in the water and enjoying themselves.
And what I kind of love about those images is it does show sort of all the ways, people kind of enjoy swimming. It can be just hanging out with your feet in the water, talking with a friend, swimming on your own, jumping off with all your friends, just that wonderful kind of spirit of summer. When we have the swims, and we'll have it again this coming summer. Seems like summer is very far away right now, but it will be upon us soon. And, people should come because it's just like a wonderful, joyous event.
Yeah.
Even if you're not going to swim, it's like going to the most fun party in Boston. Or maybe this year it'll be in Cambridge.
Yeah. Well, Jennifer, thank you for all the work you do on making the river, having us a place to swim. So we are almost at the end of the show, and this show, as well as all the other shows, are available on YouTube, and you can find information about the Swimmable Charles and the swim park on the website of the Charles River Conservancy called thecharles.org. And we are going to have charrettes in the winter to get input from stakeholders. So if you have any ideas about swimming, we have probably about 1,200 people who have swam in the Charles with the community swims, and who loved it. So please let us know, and thank you, Jennifer, for being here today. And we are going to have some information that people can contact us about the river and how to get in touch with us. Thank you very much, Jennifer.
Thank you
for coming today.
Always happy to talk about swimming in the Charles.
Great.